Pokemon Scarlet and Violet introduced us to a brand new category of Pokemon called Paradox Pokemon. These Pokemon look similar to Pokemon we've met before, but seem to be past versions or future versions from alternate timelines of these Pokemon. While they may look similar to Pokemon we've seen before, they stand out by having some crazy stat distributions, new abilities, and also by their names. These Pokemon are given incredibly strange names, different from anything we've seen before in the Pokemon franchise. Today, however, we'll be revisiting these code names, if you will, that these Pokemon are given, and instead be giving them some true names. Welcome back to the post where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we'll be talking about Paradox Pokemon, specifically the past Paradox Pokemon, and the names that we would give these Pokemon. Like I said, these Pokemon are given these kind of strange, like almost code names, like these rumored names, right? I think the idea of this is kind of coming from the names we give like cryptids, you know, Bigfoot, for example, we call this cryptid that supposedly lives in California or at least the Pacific Northwest. We call it Bigfoot. But the fact of the matter is, if this thing is real, it would be a type of animal, and that animal would have its own species name. And I think that's kind of what's going on here, is like Screamtail, Fluttermane, Walking Wake. These are their Bigfoot names, you know, and not their species names. But we do see that some Pokemon, like Koraidon and Miraidon, while being past paradoxes and having these names that represent that, you know, with Miraidon being called the Iron Serpent and Koraidon being called the Winged King, we see them get their own actual names, Koraidon and Miraidon. And since GameFreak didn't do this for the other Paradox Pokemon, we will be giving them our own names with reasons why, starting today with the past Paradox Pokemon exclusively. So let's get right into it with the first one. So we have Screamtail. Screamtail is a psychic fairy type Pokemon and is clearly a past paradox of Jigglypuff. So with this in mind, I kind of want the name to reference the Pokemon that this Pokemon is a paradox of. So I want Screamtail's name to reference Jigglypuff. Now, one thing that I really like that the anime did is there's actually a character who encounters a Screamtail and actually starts referring to it as Oni Purin. Purin is Jigglypuff's Japanese name, and of course this is the Japanese dub I'm watching because at the time of recording this video, the English dub has not gotten to this point yet. But this character refers to Jigglypuff, or refers to Screamtail, excuse me, as an Oni Purin. And the fun thing about that is Oni is like a Japanese demon. So basically, she's calling it like a demon Jigglypuff. And I really think that is cool. So I was thinking that honestly, Onipuff could be a really fitting name for this, just to kind of reference that. But another thing I was thinking is that if you look, the whole Jigglypuff line has similar names to Jigglypuff, right? You have Igglybuff, you have Jigglypuff, and you have Wigglytuff, you know? So maybe we would want this one to reference that as well. Well, you know, while this name does sound kind of stupid, one thing that you can see about this Pokemon is it's a very gruff and tough version of Jigglypuff, and is also a lot larger than your average Jigglypuff. These things are pretty big. So, honestly, Biggly-Gruff. This thing's name is Biggly-Gruff. That's the name we're picking for it. That or Onipuff, you know, you can choose between those two, but I kind of do like Biggly-Gruff. It's so stupid, I love it. Next, we have Great Tusk. So this one also kind of becomes neat because we see with Donphan that in that name, Donphan, Don is coming from Mastodon, but it also, Don is kind of a term used for men and in Spanish. So, you know, like Don Quixote, for example. So given that these Paradox Pokemon exist in the Paldea region, which is the Pokemon equivalent of Spain, I think it is cool to keep Don in there. And one thing I was thinking was that this Great Tusk is incredibly violent. We actually, it canonically has killed people. We see in the Scarlet book that Heath writes about how his team was attacked, and it seems some people even perished from this attack by a Great Tusk. Now, very likely this Pokemon is attacking with those great tusks, if you can believe it. So I'm imagining he's piercing people with those tusks, and that's kind of how he's killing them. So I was thinking that for the name, we could call it Don Fierce, but we would spell Fierce as Phierce. So like pierce, as if it's piercing something, but with an H in there as well. That way it sounds similar to Don Fierce, but it's spelled in a way where it does reference Pierce as well. I think that would be a fun way to name this Pokemon. Next up, we have Sandy Shocks. Looking at the entire Magneton line, we have Magnemite, Magneton, Magnezone, so I think it makes sense that this Pokemon's name would begin with Magna. And I like the name Magna Rock because, for one, this Pokemon is back in like the caveman days, like the Stone Age days, so you've got Magna Rock kind of referencing like the Stone Age, because stone, rock, you're seeing the connection there. But also this Pokemon has a very like punk rock look to it, so I think Magna Rock just works really, really well. This one's kind of simple, but yeah, Magna Rock. That could be a little confusing though, because it is an electric ground type, not an electric rock type. But I mean, I think that's fine. There's, you know, tons of Pokemon that live in the water but aren't water type, or, you know, are birds that fly around but aren't flying type, all that stuff. So I think it's fine to go with Magna Rock. Next, we have Slitherwing. So this one kind of was a little difficult because this Pokemon is based on Volcarona, right? And Volcarona, its whole name references fire, you know, Corona coming from, you know, the like sun, and then also Vol coming from like Vulcan or volcano, you know, those kinds of words that invoke the fire type energy. But Slitherwing is not a fire type Pokemon. However, its wings do still have this sun-like design like Volcarona's does, so I think Corona can stay here. And now it replaces that fire type with the fighting type. So instead of Volcarona, I think this one should simply just be called Brawlcarona. Next, we have Fluttermane, and this one is the one I struggled with the most because, like, Mischievous is just coming from Mischievous, and then Mismagius is just taking the Miss and adding Magi in it, like, because Mage and Magic, and I don't know, this was just harder too because, like, I don't know, I feel like Fluttermane is so similar to Mischievous as is. Like, there's not a big change here, but we do see a lot of focus in the design on its mane, and of course that's there in the name too, right? Fluttermane. Clearly an important part of this design when Game Freak was working on it was the fact that it would have this big luscious mane of hair. So we've got Mischievous, we have Mismagius, so now we have Mismagius. It's not my best work, but honestly, it is the best I can come up with. But this is a good time to plug that. If you have better names, put them in the comments below. Next, we have Brute Bonnet, which is a paradox of Amoonguss. This time, it kind of has a tail, and it has legs, and it can walk around, whereas Amoonguss just kind of bounces around and is really just a mushroom, you know, not like this mushroom dino hybrid. So I'm thinking, let's make it sound similar to Amoonguss and call it Abrutus. And where this is coming from is, first off, we'd spell it with a U, not an A, so Ubrootus, and the U there kind of makes it sound similar to uproot, because this Pokemon has uprooted, right? It now has legs and is walking around. And then also Brute to kind of reference that it is a Brute, and also its codename is Brute Bonnet. Next, we have Roaring Moon, and I have two ideas for the name for this one, but I'm gonna be honest, I feel like one I like better for, like, as a biased reason, but then another one makes a bit more sense for it. So the first name for it that I am just a little biased to, and I admit it's not the best name for it, is Megaments. Now, the reason why is because obviously it has connections to Roaring Moon, and I think that it is a Pokemon that even the Pokedex talks about. It has a connection to the Mega Evolution phenomenon, so I think that kind of connection would be fun to just call it Megaments. But a lot of people refer to, like, you know, in our world, when we're talking about, like, Pokemon, a lot of people refer to Mega Salamence as Megaments, so I don't think that... I think that would be really confusing, right? There are some Pokemon that do have Mega in their name, right? Like Yanmega and, you know, Meganium. There's the Mega in there. It's pronounced a little bit different. But, you know, so I don't think it would be too bad, but I can see how we'd want to stay away from this. So instead, I was thinking let's focus on the crescent shape of Roaring Moon and instead call it Lunaments. So, you know, Luna coming from lunar and keeping the mints from salamence. Next, we have the Paradox Beasts. So these are Paradox forms of Suicune, Raikou, and Entei. For Walking Wake, we have Dracoon, coming from a Drake, which is, you know, like a type of dragon, and Suicune. Pretty simple. For Raging Bolt, I went with Raycloud, coming from Raikou, but then also adding in the cloud because, you know, there is that whole cloud effect of Raging Bolt, with its signature move even being Thunderclap, where its little cloud glows and it strikes down thunder, you know, resembling a thundercloud. This also, Raycloud, the way it's spelled would be R-A-I Cloud, and so that would kind of look similar to Rain Cloud. So, you know, I think that just works really well into it. But yeah, then for Entei, that was a really, really hard one, because like Entei, that name doesn't give me a lot to work with. So unfortunately, the best I could come up with is Enter, because Entei, Enter. You know, it does say it's gouging. Tearing is kind of a synonym for gouging. It does have those really sharp claws and those really sharp spikes on its shield head face thing. So I imagine it could tear pretty good. I'm not proud of that one, but it is the best I could come up with. But there you have it, guys. All together, those names would be Onipuff or Bigly Gruff, Dawn Fierce, Magnarok, Brawl Corona, Miss Manius, Abrutus, Megamints, or probably the better name would be Lunamints, and then Dracoon, Enter, and Raycloud, alongside Koraidon for the past Paradox Pokemon. Let me know what you think of these names. Let me know what name ideas you have for these past Paradox Pokemon. If you like this video, be sure to like the video and also share it, comment, all that fun stuff. Hit subscribe if you haven't. That way I know you like the video, and then I know, hey, people probably want me to do this for the future Paradoxes as well. Do all that fun stuff, and until next time, I will see all of you later.